The political economy approach to media studies investigates how media systems are shaped by economic structures, ownership patterns, labor relations, and state power. Rather than analyzing media content in isolation, this perspective focuses on the structural conditions under which media is produced, distributed, and consumed. It views communication not merely as a symbolic or cultural process, but as a material and ideological practice embedded within systems of capitalist production and power relations. 1. Core assumptions. At its foundation, political economy assumes that media is not a neutral transmitter of information but is deeply influenced by ownership concentration and corporate control, market imperatives such as advertising and profitability, state regulation and policy frameworks, the commodification of content, audiences, and labor. From this perspective, media are understood as industries that operate within the logic of capital accumulation and ideological reproduction. The goal is to reveal how media serve to maintain existing social relations, particularly in favor of dominant political and economic elites. 2. Historical foundations and key thinkers. The political economy tradition draws heavily on Marxist theory, especially the critique of ideology, alienation, and the control of the means of production. Early theorists such as Herbert Schiller, 1976, Dallas Smythe, 1977, and later Robert W. McChesney and Graham Murdoch and Peter Golding helped institutionalize this approach within communication studies. Herbert Schiller, in Communication and Cultural Domination, 1976, introduced the notion of cultural imperialism, arguing that media exports from the US dominated the cultural landscape of developing nations, reinforcing Western capitalist values. Dallas Smythe coined the term audience commodity, emphasizing that media audiences are not just consumers of content, but themselves become products sold to advertisers. Murdoch and Golding, 1974, proposed a political economy of culture that combines analysis of ownership, production, and ideology. These thinkers insist that media must be understood within the totality of social, political, and economic processes, not just through texts or audience reception. 3. Media ownership and power. A central concern in political economy is media concentration. As a handful of corporations gain control over multiple platforms, TV, radio, newspapers, digital media, the diversity of perspectives shrinks, and public discourse becomes more aligned with corporate interests. According to McChesney, 1999, this trend leads to a corporate media system that prioritizes profit over public interest, standardizes content, and marginalizes dissenting voices. He argues that the commercialization of journalism and the dependence on advertising revenue erode democratic communication. 4. Commodification and labor. Political economy also critiques the commodification of culture, the transformation of ideas, identities, and experiences into marketable products. Media content becomes a vehicle for consumer ideology, reinforcing values of individualism, consumption, and passivity. Additionally, the approach sheds light on the precarious labor conditions within media industries, particularly under digital capitalism, e.g., gig economy content creators, platform workers, invisible algorithmic labor. 5. Globalization and cultural imperialism. From a political economy perspective, globalization is not a neutral expansion of media technologies but a power-laden process of cultural domination. As Western media conglomerates expand globally, they often displace local media industries and impose Western norms, aesthetics, and political ideologies, a process Schiller identified as media imperialism. This critique has been particularly important in Global South contexts, where scholars argue that media flows are asymmetrical, reinforcing cultural dependency and undermining local expression. 6. Criticisms and contribution. Critics of the political economy approach argue that it sometimes neglects audience agency and symbolic interpretation. However, its strength lies in exposing how media systems are structured by capital and class, providing tools to critically assess the political and economic interests behind communication practices. Today, political economy is increasingly integrated with critical data studies, platform capitalism, and digital labor analysis, making it highly relevant in the age of Google, Meta, Amazon, and TikTok. 7. Conclusion. In sum, the political economy approach offers a powerful lens to understand who owns the media, who profits from it, whose interests it serves, and how media systems reproduce ideology, inequality, and capitalist logic. It challenges the illusion of neutrality and urges scholars and citizens alike to question how media infrastructures shape not only what we see, but also how we think and live. The control of communication means the control of consciousness. Herbert Schiller.